Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Identity Insights by Indicio. Today, I'm joined by Cristian Talle, who is the CTO of Bullet ID, to discuss some of the interesting technologies that they're working on. Thank you so much for making some time for me today, Cristian. So I know you're, in addition to being CTO of Bullet ID, you're also a founding member of Verio ID, and both companies are working on some kind of similar technology pieces. I'm curious, what drew you to this space?
Hi, Tim. Great to be here, and thank you for the invitation. First of all, I'd like to clarify kind of the relationship between Verio and Bullet ID. Verio is a technology provider to Bullet ID. We provide the decentralized identity infrastructure for Bullet ID, for the Bullet ID solution. Now, going back to your question, I have to say that I've been working over the past 15 years on quite a few technology innovation projects, some of which I co-founded. And in all of them, the main focus was obviously to find seeds to service the needs of the market. Back in 2017, I dove in the blockchain field. And at that time, there were already quite a few initiatives that looked promising in the field of digital identity. Back then, I was working on a solution for real estate regulators, management and tracking of property offers. And the features of a blockchain-based identity were a perfect match. And the startup was almost immediately acquired. And then I could focus on the next project, which was a blockchain consulting company whose first real-world client was Bullet ID. And that's how the two companies started working. We went through various R&D cycles, built a full enterprise blockchain stack along with other components. But I follow closely the development of the new DID-based standards and technology stack, in particular the Hyperledger Indy project. And in 2020, the time seemed ripe to start working on a solution that can be easily integrated into existing infrastructure. So that's how Verio was born. And again, I'll try to give a short answer to your question. What drew me particularly to this space is are the endless possibilities offered by decentralized identity in today's context, not in the strict sense of identity, but more that of exchanging verifiable information in the digital space, and also the level of decoupling and simplicity that is achievable through that.
All right. So sorry, I'm going to stop you there real quick before we move on. Could you define like decoupling? What does that mean?
Decoupling means, at least if that, what I mean by it is being able to limit the amount of functionality implemented in a system to what it's actually responsible for, and not have strong ties with external systems like tight integrations or anything of that sort.
So going back to Bullet ID here, what problem did Bullet ID set out to solve?
Quite a few. It's actually not a single problem. We're looking at a full spectrum of problems here. Now, going back to the concept of matching a need with a seed, UPC barcode technology has been present in our lives for many years. Laser etching is also a mature technology. Bruce Lewis, the founder of Bullet ID, had an idea. And that is, what if we put a trackable barcode on each bullet? So right away, we could identify, a list of needs that were in the market and are still not currently addressed in the world. Obviously, gun control is a highly disputed topic. The lack of proper ammunition stockpile management systems in defense and law enforcement. We have illicit ammunition trading, which is a big issue. We have theft of ammunition for the benefit of organized crime. We have some difficulty in forensic investigation, which is, a long time required and sometimes inadequate results from ballistic examination. So there's a whole portfolio or whole spectrum of problems, as I said.
Absolutely. So, right, I can definitely tell how, if someone stole a case of bullets, you could track that serial number or anything. After a bullet's fired, is it still like, how recognizable is it? Can you tell a barcode off it, or how does that work?
Yeah, of course, because the shell, the case of the bullet is actually not damaged during firing. I mean, yes, you get some powder and smoke and stuff like that, but unlike the actual bullet, the projectile, which is damaged, when it hits the target, the case is always present at the crime scene, easy to find. The gun is never there. So
So how, I guess, if you could go into a little bit of background on how historically, crime scene investigators have worked on tracking down gun owners or bullets, or how that connection is made. Uh, how has that been done before?
Well, I'm not a forensic scientist. We have a good forensic people on our board even, but I can try and outline some of the solutions used to date for these various problems. So when we look at, for instance, gun control and forensic investigation, typically we're looking at implementing gun registries to track ownership of guns. We're looking at ballistic fingerprinting of guns. And there are some newer solutions along the same line, focused mostly on gun traceability, so not so much on ammunition traceability. Then if you look at stockpile management, for instance, there's almost not a single solution at all out there. You can tell that by simply looking at the value of ammunition being scrapped every year. In the US alone, we're talking over $100 million yearly again. There is no clear picture of where the ammunition has been, in high temperatures, low temperatures, how long it's been there in the warehouse, and in many cases, there's no accurate picture of how much stock is actually available, let alone how much is in the field at with the forces. So, and then we have obviously another problem, the big one, the ammunition theft and illicit trading, and here. We can only smile, I guess. Yeah, there's nothing out there to prevent this yet.
For Bullet ID's solution, right, obviously you guys are tracking the bullets, which sounds pretty good to me. Obviously you can kind of track back, who it was fired from or purchased from, all that. How have you done any studies? How has that been working, at least in your trials? Or
well, so currently because this is all new technology, obviously, and the regulatory environment is still maturing. We're just around the corner from rolling out in the first few countries. So it's kind of hard to say. I mean, based on our testing, again, the solution works very, very well, and it's scalable. We were able to scan bullets even after firing them and running them through tumbling and everything to increase the wear. And from what we can tell, there was not a single problem that different organizations or governments are facing that this solution would not address.
Okay. I'm not sure if you can tell me, but are there any countries you could name drop? Like, is the United States looking out for it soon?
No, I mean we've been working with different parties in the United States, and United States is probably the most complex market you can look at, because there's you have a lot of private manufacturers, and then you have several distribution streams for ammunition. You're talking defense, you're talking law enforcement. There's a good size of retail market as well. And we're going to be working closely with some partners for early adoption. Whereas if you look, for instance, at the South American market, that's where you have a lot of the organized crime problems, ammunition theft, and even traceability requirements for them to be able to export, for instance, to the United States.
And diving into that crime angle just for a second with you, how easy, I guess, is it to kind of scrape off, or how is the bullet casing tagged exactly? Because I know you can do serial numbers from a gun, right? So
yeah, there is it is a barcode that we engrave on the bullet, on the case, using laser technology. Obviously, everything is you can tamper with, you can try and file it or whatever, grind it, but at that point you're actually risking the integrity of the bullet. So it may misfire or cause other problems. So we have the right amount of, I guess, depth that is safe for the bullet to be used, but it could create problems if you try to erase it or hide it. Yeah, and then also Bullet has a very efficient way of representing the information, especially when you're looking at a global marketplace where different countries can have different networks and so on. When you scan a bullet or a case or a box of ammunition, you should be able to direct your query at the appropriate network to begin with, and follow the track from there, right? For all the trace from there. So we have a very efficient way of representing that information so that it fits the real estate of a case of a bullet.
That would be right. To just simplify it in my mind, that would be like there's a bucket for like police, a bucket for like military, a bucket for like civilian, different kind of bullets, and then you would filter into those different databases. Is that how that would kind of work?
No, I mean, the ammunition is a product at the end of the day. It is packaged, and then you distribute the product through various chains, and it's all traceable, and I mean, I guess the information is transferable from one system to another.
So can you use Bullet ID's solution today? What platforms, if any, are integrated with it?
Okay, at this moment, it is confirmed to be the only end-to-end ammunition tracking solution in the market to that level of detail. I mean, down to the individual round. Now, the advances we saw in ledger and decentralized identity technology over the past few years, along with steps towards mandating the serialization of ammunition at national level, made everything possible. So we're pretty much right around the corner in terms of being able to roll this out. And I cannot disclose the name of the countries. Now, to talk a bit about the readiness and the technology at use here, at work here, verifiable credentials are integrated in all the layers of the Bullet ID solution. We are talking here authentication and authorization with Ledger database, which is at the core of our infrastructure. Then we have network instance management. And here I'd say typically there's one network per jurisdiction, per country, but you could have separate networks just to ensure more privacy for the different supply chains at work. They're used in cross-network data exchange authorization when you import and export, for instance, or change custody ownership between networks, and also for user and device authentication. So, the use of verifiable credentials and this technology makes the whole thing easy to scale and integrate without duplicating data or responsibilities. That's when I mentioned earlier decoupling. That's what I was referring to. So everyone maintains their jurisdiction. We have, for instance, military and law enforcement personnel credentials or civilian permits that can be issued in a standard compliant, fully interoperable way by each country without any vendor lock-in. So Bullet ID does not make any assumptions as to what digital identity infrastructure a country has, or what other inventory tracking systems or anything of that sort. Everything is easy to plug in, and just by connecting through web APIs, web hooks, you can tie everything together very quickly.
So how, just because I'm curious, how easy is that, right? They obviously, everyone's, has their own kind of, point of sale and all that stuff where you can kind of track the bullets back a little bit to the manufacturer. How easy is it to plug Bullet ID into that existing system? Is it talking like maybe a day to integrate, a week, a month? Like how does that work?
Well, I mean, it depends on the extent of the integration, because you can see Bullet ID as a framework as well that has the basic functionality, the minimal required data points that have to be captured for tracking the ammunition. But if you need to integrate that with, let's say more extensive order tracking or product, add more product details, or add, traceability down to the end user, integrate with, I don't know, track the use of ammunition, for instance, for each person in the field and stuff like that. There is a bit of integration, but it's mostly, like I said, it's mostly through APIs and webhooks. There's no proprietary software to write or anything like that.
All right. That sounds great for anyone trying to avoid vendor lock-in. So it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this is really useful for anyone trying to do kind of supply chain management. Is Verio working on anything for non-bullets, or is
Well,
bullet?
I mean, it could. Obviously, our focus, I mean, Bullet ID's focus is on ammunition tracking. It could be easily extended to parts for guns or whatever. And there are already pretty solid supply chain solutions out there today, especially, for instance, in the pharmaceutical industry or even shipping, goods. Uh, you have blockchain technology already integrated. So uh, we heard many people say many times, I cannot believe how nobody thought about this so far. And I think that the missing link here were verifiable credentials, to be honest with you, because there's a very high focus on privacy and confidentiality. And the rollout would have been very, very costly even 2, 3 years ago.
Okay. And how do verifiable credentials really preserve that privacy, if you don't mind diving into that with us a little bit?
Well, again, by keeping the jurisdiction of the data, within each organization's court, pretty much,
Okay.
right? You do not have to expose information about your people, or you do not have to expose information about the machines or ammunition being distributed unless somebody is really requesting it and authorized to view it. So you're breaking the data down into chunks. Whenever you have to verify, you do it easily, because again, we're talking standards here, open standards.
So Bullet ID sounds super exciting. Is there anything next on Verio's horizons you could tell me about? Any exciting projects or features or anything to look out for?
Well, Verio has put so far a lot of work into developing building blocks, as I said, mostly on top of the areas framework. We will contribute a fully working version of the mobile agent libraries built on Indicio's already open source libraries for iOS and Android. These are at the core of both Bullet ID and the Verio Me apps that are to be released soon. What else is coming? I mentioned Verio Me, which is our take on a user-oriented wallet focused on digital interactions. We have Verio Desktop, which is an edge agent library for .NET that we're going to open source as well, most likely. Then we have Verio Connect and Vibe that are part of the release of our enterprise product offering. And we also have several integrations in third-party or joint venture solutions, but I don't want to disclose anything just yet.
Perfect. Well, it looks like we are about out of time. Thank you again so much for joining me today, Cristian. If you want to learn a little bit more about Bullet ID, I'll have a link to their website below. And if you're interested in Verio ID, I'll have a link to that website as well. If you want to learn a bit more about decentralized identity in general, please be sure to subscribe to the Indicio YouTube channel, and we'll continue to bring you some more educational content similar to this. If you have any questions or specific topics that you'd like for us to cover, please leave a comment below, and we'll be sure to address them. Thanks again, Cristian. I heard you have some demos coming soon. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, so if you come soon enough to our website, you'll be able to see a series of very case-focused demos, and obviously they will be showcasing our portfolio of products, but it is very applicable to digital decentralized identity technology in general, right? So we're really excited. Please come visit us soon.